I'm joined by Adrian and Michael, who I have to admit I've had the joy of speaking to already, so I can tell you this is going to be a very interesting and educational session, and I will try and keep ourselves to time. At the moment they're in the hospitality and travel sectors, but I have to admit, having spoken to them, I actually think their experience spans a much broader sector and certainly reflects my own experience with clients. So this really is hearing it directly from the horse's mouth. And I really do want to start with something that actually, as a law firm partner, we spend a lot of time on, which is spending money trying to enhance our brand and really trying to put more and more energy into getting our directory rankings up and thinking about what our website looks like and sponsoring conferences. And what I really want to know from you is, when it actually comes to who you're going to instruct, how important actually is the brand that we spend so long trying to cultivate?
Because you've spent a lot of money on it, I'm going to say it's important. Because I'd hate to start off on a negative note.
Thank you.
It's good in certain areas. So if, for example, I am looking for work in the UK, brand is not something which I am particularly going to be bothered with. If I'm looking for work for a law firm in another country where I haven't done business before, so if I'm looking for a law firm, say in Rwanda or in another African country or somewhere in Southeast Asia, then I'm probably going to look at a brand. Yeah. Because I know that you're only as good as your weakest link, and they've probably done the research and they've done the due diligence on that firm. Because sometimes these firms are joint ventures with others, but they would have done the due diligence on that firm in order to make sure that it's actually is the same standard across the board. And we were talking about this earlier, in that it's the same in our business. We're both all over the world, and it's as long as you have your brand. If you want to have and spend a lot of money on your brand, make sure that it's good all over the world, and then that's important.
I absolutely agree with what Michael's just said. Obviously, coming from a company that has more than 30 different hotel operating brands, a key thing for me is that within that portfolio of 30 brands in Accor, we have to distinguish and differentiate between those brands so that to you as consumers, each brand means something different. Now, if I analogize with all of your various law firms that you represent, you're desperately trying, I'm sure, to make sure that your brand stands out for something different to your competitors' brands. And that's slightly harder, I think, for you in a professional services environment, because actually the reason that we come to you is we're looking for expertise, we're looking for skills, and it's quite difficult to communicate how your expertise and your skills is different to another firm's. So a bit like Michael said, I think brands matter an awful lot. I think that communicating what stands behind the brand actually probably matters more to me than the colour that you have adopted. I couldn't really care whether you're purple or orange or green, because that doesn't really flow through beyond the very first impression that I have. Or what you call yourselves, that doesn't really bother me too much. I think that having real confidence in what it is that you can offer and having a confidence in your skill, in your expertise, that's where you should be putting your energy.
And actually just digging into that, so the one thing that a lot of law firms are saying at the moment is that they're very innovative and sort of technology driven. I suppose A, would you agree? And B, how important is that? Or is that basically now what you're expecting from all firms that you're working with?
Shall I go first on that one?
Sure.
I think that it's really important that technology, and we were just listening to the end of the last session actually as we were up at the back, and I got a strong sense that technology is going to be a game changer. And I think if you're not already embracing technology, then my recommendation to you would be that you need to, because I think the law firm of 10 years hence is going to look very, very different to the law firm that you would be representing now. That's equally true for me as an in-house lawyer. The way that I'm approaching the market and the tools that I'm going to be using in an in-house department are going to be very, very different in the next year or two let alone 10 years' time. I can't imagine what. I was on another panel back in May, and we were debating on that, what the law firm and the in-house legal department of 10 years hence would look like. And we just said technology is moving so fast that actually it's almost an impossible ask to try to define what that would look like. So I think embracing technology, short answer to your question, is that it's a must.
Yeah.
Was that your short answer?
That was the short answer.
Wait for his long answer.
Yeah, the long one will come later.
Okay. It's important for us that law firms do have the latest technology in place because we want the work done a lot quicker, and we want the work done accurately. And if technology is going to help the law firms do that, then that's fantastic. So if part of what you're selling is that we have this super duper technology and it does this and this, and it's always going to be, the work is going to be accurate, and you're going to be able to do this and you're going to be able to do that, we're going to be able to produce it for you a lot quicker, of course that, we're going to be interested in that. Absolutely. The thing which everyone talks about with technology, and I think people are getting a little bit more concerned than I'm certainly getting about technology, is that, I look back and sort of when I first started in the law and I look at where we are now with technology, we've moved, the law firm now is hugely different from the law firm when I started. And I think that we get a little bit too worried, the fact that in 10 years' time it's going to move and it's going to gradually move, but I think we should all stop worrying so much. It's a bit like Brexit. Stop worrying so much.
Before it gives you a moment to say, I do have my own questions, but if you do want to submit any via Slido, please do, otherwise we'll obviously hands up and do shout out. Sorry, the other thing that we all as private practice lawyers worry about a lot is actually developing relationships with our individuals and our clients. And I suppose really I'm just interested in your reflection on, kind of balanced against brand. How important is that sort of one-to-one relationship sort of growing?
Well, I think, again, Michael's touched on it in the way that he answered the very first question, which is, to me in the UK, relationships, because I already have an established, I wouldn't call them a panel, I haven't got a formal panel, but I have established relationships with lawyers that I've used over the years. Those personal relationships cement and underpin the way that I work with external lawyers. And so I'm much more likely to know who I want to go and talk to on a particular matter because I already have, if you like, my own internal directory of people who could be good and could help. Where the brand comes into play is where you don't have that connection.
And if I can unpick that, so what is it that those lawyers are delivering to you that means that you stick with them?
Yeah, there's a little bit of chemistry in it, actually. In fact, I'd say there's quite a lot of chemistry. I'm going to challenge myself. I think they know me as a person. They understand what I want, and therefore they're somehow intuitively able to communicate in the right way, not over-communicate, not under-communicate. I'm a pretty simple soul, so, keep it simple is my mantra. Lawyers generally have, I think they're relatively cautious people by nature, so if they can overcomplicate something and analyse it to death, and it troubles me when you've sort of analysed something here, and now you're on a risk that is really remote, and yet, and so the likelihood of it ever coming to pass is very, very remote, and yet we're spending a huge amount of time and effort discussing that. That would not be a lawyer of choice for me. I'd like my lawyers to know in my hospitality world what counts and where the risks really are. So I think knowing the industry that I work in, knowing me as a person, and actually approaching the relationship and work with a bit of humour, because to be honest, it's not all serious. I wouldn't get up and go to work if it was serious and not a bit of fun as well. So I like lawyers around me that can translate that into a bit of fun.
Yeah, they need to understand my mood swings. I find that helps develop the relationship. So yes, and I can understand why law firms find it quite difficult. How do you break through to that general counsel in order to create that relationship? Because everyone knows that once you've developed a relationship with a general counsel, and if it's a good one, that can last. That can last a lifetime. So that's difficult. That is difficult. I understand that's difficult to do, and it's you can take me to the rugby as much as you want, but at the end of the day, it is, if you understand what really makes me tick, and that is, to start, that is a case of doing the work on time at a decent price, and then that sort of starts the relationship. Because at the end of the day, we're business people, we're lawyers, we need to get the job done. And then after that, yes, the relationship. And then if you like the person as well, that's just a benefit on top of it. But, and if they know your industry and they're interested in your industry. And, I get emails from people who I work with, and they'll just shoot one across saying, I saw this about your company, or I saw that about the company, it looks really good. Or, sometimes they email me, say, we want to go here on a holiday, can you sort me out? And then I'll put them onto a consultant to do it.
Is that well received?
Yeah, that's very well received. I'm quite happy for people to come and say we want a holiday. We want to go on holiday.
So, I agree with Michael, by the way. I mean, any law firm that sets out to say we're jolly good because we do things on time. Sorry, hygiene factor, not interested. I expect that. We're very good because we charge reasonable rates. Okay, you've slightly got my interest, but actually, I'd only want to go to a law firm that was charging rates that are, well, I think that are value for money. I wouldn't necessarily say that they have to be the cheapest, but are value for money for what you're doing. So I'm afraid you don't get any plaudits for saying those two things in your
So what
materials.
does start to get your attention then?
As I say, I think when I'm looking for a law firm, I want to know about what you've done that is relevant to what I'm looking for. Yeah. So there is no harm in saying we've just done this deal, to the extent that you're allowed to by your clients, but we've been involved in this industry sector. So if you're in hotels and hospitality, say that you're in hotels and hospitality.
Yeah.
Please have the expertise to back that claim up, but if you have got that claim, then make the claim.
Which brings me on to another question, actually. Is there a gap between what people promise to you in terms of the service and skill set and what you get delivered? And I'm not really meaning your relationship firms, I'm more meaning sort of around the globe. Or actually, do people tend to, better reflect their skills these days? Because I think there was always a gap, and then somehow you were promised the earth, and then what you got was something quite different.
It can still happen.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
It's an impossible question to answer because when it's happening.
Yes.
But you hope that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, okay. But it's not been removed from existence.
No, it's still there.
Yeah.
No, I think it probably will always be there.
I think there is a tendency for law firms to say we're expert at everything.
Yeah.
And be very, very careful with that, because make the claim honestly about what you're good at and sell that.
Yeah.
And you'll have good clients that will stick with you. If you say you're good at things that you're not, well then, it's a hostage to fortune.
And we touched on innovation, and obviously one of the things I think we're often worried about is all the sort of disruptors that happen in law, people who are perhaps coming in as competitors to the traditional law firms. What are your experience? What are you seeing? What's working well? What should we be worried about?
Well, I've been quite impressed with this, the auction websites, where you go on and you stick in what you're looking for. And you get 3 quotes back, and you get to see the CVs of the actual people who are going to be doing your work. And these are often partners who have retired from Magic Circle firms and now working out of their studies in Surrey, and they like doing a bit of work. And you look at that and you go, well, and they're offering it to you for a fraction. Yeah. Of the price of what you'd have to do. And normally it's a specific area for me. If it's some sort of little thing about bank accounts in Jersey and a bit of anti-money laundering and stuff like that, I'll go to someone who's a bit of a specialist in that, and using those auction websites. Yeah, that's very interesting. That for me has been quite an eye opener. Yeah. Because it's a very different way than what we would normally work, and it's a lot more reasonably priced.
Yeah, I agree, and I think actually that law firms are not tapping into a lot of work that is there because there's a gap in the market. There are things that we do that are our bread and butter that we do in-house, and the reason we do them in-house is because, frankly, they are routine and they come up every day, and it's our core business. And we should be able to do the agreements that relate to our core business and our core activities more cost-effectively than any law firm, and we should be, to be honest, as expert at doing those as any law firm. Where I think law firms are missing a trick at the moment, and the external providers are potentially offering a service, is a cost-effective way of doing the low-value work. Yeah. So there is too much work typically for an internal in-house law department to deal with, and yet, to be honest, most of the time we're scared to put it out because it won't represent good value for money to put it out. So the new entrants into the market do offer an opportunity to bridge that gap in terms of dealing with work that's still important within our businesses, but probably doesn't command the level of skill or expertise to warrant actually taking it out to an external law firm. So that to me is an interesting development in the market, which I think has happened in the last 3 to 5 years particularly.
And just pick up one of the questions from the floor. So obviously we've got kind of at one end, like your relationship firms, and then at the other end, the disruptors. And then in the middle, there's the rest of us thinking, what do I need to do to get a meeting with you to start to build that relationship? So what sort of thing am I going to have to do to actually be able to, knock on your door and get your interest?
You've got to come up with something new, I suppose.
So I can't just say, I've been ranked first in the directory, you really must talk to me, I'm brilliant.
Yeah. You've got to come up with, okay, so for example, I don't see enough law firms coming to me and saying, all right, if you give us a piece of work, we will then rank that piece of work as far as how difficult it is, how complicated it is, and therefore, instead of, we're not going to have a partner rate at £500 an hour for every single time that partner touches any of your work.
Yeah.
What we're going to have is, yes, that partner will oversee your work, but if it is of a, if it doesn't, if it's not very, very complicated, then he's only going to charge you $250, right?
Yeah.
Or, we can have somebody, because you still want the partner to oversee it.
Yeah.
Because, you need that expertise to say, yes, that's been done. But we don't want, so we want something different, to come across. I mean, that might not be the right example, but something like that where you're saying, we've decided to do a completely different way of billing or delivery.
Yeah. I mean, the flippant answer to your question is they have to get past my PA.
Most important person.
But the slightly less flippant answer is that I think it does come down to innovation. It's about being able to say, look, we know what you're doing. We know the sorts of agreements you work with. We've got a new way of looking at things. We've got something new to say about it. We've got something interesting. We've just done a deal that might be relevant to your world. We'd like to share some elements of that with you. I appreciate you can't share every deal because you might have been acting for a competitor, but nonetheless, it comes back to we've got some skill and expertise. We might know something that you don't, because let's be honest, all of your partners and all of your lawyers know an awful lot that we don't know as clients. Yeah. Share that with us.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a law firm who came to me 3 years ago and said, Mike, we will take all your low-hanging fruit off your hands. We're based up in the north. We will charge you nothing, hardly anything to do. So we want to. Would you enter into a retainer with us? So I tried it out for a year, and it's worked absolutely fantastically. So I mean, they, and I use technology. I use a matter management system in order to work with them on that. But they do. I mean, things come into my department. I have a look at it, and then I ping it out to them, and they actually work in the matter management system as I do. They have administration rights as well, so they add the matters, and then we have a call every twice a week. We get on the phone and we go through all the matters and what they're doing. But they're pretty much my in-house department.
Yeah.
And it is a fraction. If I had to hire one lawyer, it would cost me more than I have for all the matters that are dealing with me every year. It's a no-brainer.
And I suppose as an extension of what we're doing now, another question from the floor, is obviously it's important to very much ask your thoughts and listen. And a lot of firms now, mine included, are doing formal client listening programs. Have you had experience with that? Is it something that you think is valuable and we should be doing?
Formal client listening program.
Yes, so you actually get
therapy.
It's I've worked with you, and trying to get someone external from the partners and the team you've been working with to actually talk to you about your experience, and learn from it and actually give you a better service going forward. I'm guessing you've not had this.
Absolutely
not.
It
used to be called lunch.
Maybe it's better when it's lunch.
And they're still quite useful. So,
yes.
Yeah. Let's not give up on lunch, please.
No.
One of the reasons we became in-house counsel.
So one of the things we've sort of slightly touched on is price. And I have to admit, again, going back to things that, as private practice lawyers, we spend a lot of time and energy on. I mean, in all the things that you're sort of weighing up in your mind, how important actually is price compared to they know me, they know my sector, you know, they've got a good CV in terms of doing this work before?
Price is always going to be important. We all have budgets.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm also very much of the opinion that, I know some in-house lawyers, pride themselves on beating down, law firms as cheap as they possibly can. But I don't think that's fantastic for your relationship with your law firm.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, you've got to get a good price, but you've got to maintain that relationship. And if they feel that they're being constantly beaten up, and because it's sort of, as humans, we all know that we place a certain value on what we get paid as a salary. It's it's a sort of sense of, yes, that's my value, etc. So if you turn around and say to a law firm, okay, we're not going to pay you, we're only going to pay you £100 an hour for a partner, they're not going to feel that great about themselves, are they? And it breaks the relationship. So you have to find a middle ground. You've got to find that level which works for both of you, and you've got to be open about it.
Yeah.
And I do this with firms. I said, look, I just can't pay that. I really respect your work, etc., etc. But that's just too much. And often you can find a middle ground as long as you can talk about it and be transparent about it.
Now, we have only got 5 minutes left, and I should ask some questions.
I'll give you an analogy as well, just to answer that question, because I think I'd like to comment on price as well. As you may know, if you ask employees what's the most important thing to them in terms of coming to work, salary will be up there, but it will not be the number one item. Probably the number one item might be the quality of the food in the restaurant, if you have a staff restaurant. It literally is genuinely the case. So actually, if you ask me, is price the most important thing? No, it's not. The reason I've gone to an external law firm in the first place is either because I need something done quickly, in which case my key driver is speed, or I don't know how to do something, in which case my key driver is expertise and skill to help me get something done that I can't do.
Yeah.
So there are already potentially one or two reasons, because actually it's quite often that I don't know how to do it and I need it done quickly, which means that price is at least in third place in that scenario. Okay. It's not first.
Yeah.
And I use the word that I used earlier. It's not about price, it's about value. So if you can do it quickly and if you can do it well, I'll pay a bit more for it.
Now, there's another bit to marketing that we always worry about, which is basically sending you things that we think you might be interested in, usually by email, or trying to get you involved in thought leadership campaigns that we're working on. How much is that actually useful to you? How much do you just get an email from one of us and hit delete? What would you like to receive?
Well, Outlook has focused and not focused now. So it just goes into the not focused.
Okay.
It doesn't even come into your email box anymore.
Yeah.
Unless you've opened it before.
Yeah.
So it's not actually even getting to us.
Okay.
I'm not looking at... I don't have time.
Yeah.
I don't have time to look at that sort of stuff. I mean, these sort of events, I think getting, I know both of us have been on panels before. We quite enjoy coming and chatting, taking an hour out and talking to people and, shooting the breeze and meeting you all. And, we quite enjoy doing that and having a drink afterwards. Yeah. And so that's the best way of getting to sort of interact with us and exchanging cards and say, look, I really want to meet you. I want to sit down. I want to speak to you. This is what we can offer you, something a bit different. Okay. I think that's much, much better. Yeah. Because just sending us messages and emails and things like that is not so great. But getting us on panels where we're made to think we're important.
Well done.
I would say I think it's got better. So there was a spate about 5 to 10 years ago where I would come in every morning and I would be bombarded with the daily email from XYZ firm, except that XYZ firm wasn't unique, so I'd have about 10 of them. Yeah. And so the first thing that I would do is I'd just highlight them all and delete them. So to your point, they may have got through, but they never got read. Yeah. Now, I think the fact that you can go on and say, right, I want to subscribe to a newsletter service, but I'm only interested in 2 things or 3 things, and you can update your preferences, that has made a huge difference. And
what do you think about the old-fashioned telephone and people not emailing you but actually giving you a call to tell you something?
They won't get through.
They won't get through, okay.
No. Sorry.
That's fair enough, nice and clear. Okay, in that case I think one very last question. when you're looking sort of, beyond your sort of immediate relationship firms and sort of trying to work out who's the best firm to work with, how much weight do you give to sort of the directory rankings? Because I think as private practice firms are often a little bit suspicious about where we get ranked in certain places, and I'm never sure if that's just our own sort of arrogance or whether everybody ought to have some suspicion about it. Is it useful to you? Is it important to be band 1 for something?
Not for me.
Okay.
No, not for me. I mean, I've had huge thanks from probably from a number of your firms for contributing to entries into the directories, but I don't read them.
Yeah.
They are only useful in very, very limited circumstances. So, say that I want a lawyer in relation to human rights, which is not something that comes up in my world very often, because actually within hospitality we like to make people feel welcome anyway. So hopefully we're not having too much of a human rights issue, but let's say we had one. I wouldn't know where to start. So at that point the directory is useful. It happens once every 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And then normally you just call up a relationship law firm and you say, do you know somebody in such and such a place? And they normally do.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
So sorry about that.
Sorry about that.
An enormous amount of money.
If anybody's here from the Legal 500 or Chambers, I'm really sorry about that.
Do you have time for one or two more questions? Anybody have questions on the floor? No?
We've got a load on Slido.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a few on Slido if people want.
Covered most of them. We covered most of them.